I'm Paul.
I'm Devin.
Together, we're Dads and Dice, two brand new dads who like to play some games during our free time.
That's right, and today we are going to be reviewing Now or Never. This game was actually given to us as a review copy by Red Raven Games, and we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, so this is the third installment in the Arzium trilogy. The first being Above and Below, the next being Near or Far, and then finally Now or Never. In this game, you and up to 3 friends are going to be able to compete to rebuild your village from the meteorite monsters.
Okay, and before we get into the actual review of the game, I'll do a very brief, or as brief as a large game like this can be, overview of how the game plays out. So the game will play out over 6 rounds, or seasons in this game, and during each season, players will take turns back and forth until they pass. Once a player passes, they are out until all players pass. All players pass, you go on to the next season. During your turn, you really have 2 actions that you can choose from. The first action being a specialist action, and the specialists are 4 different types of actions kind of built into one ability. So on your player board, you start with 2 specialists. You can end up having up to 4. And the 4 actions they can do is they can let you build, which is kind of its own little mini game in a sense. You have buildings set up in a grid that you use resources from to place onto your main player board, and there's some nuances to which buildings you can pick and where they can go, but that is the building action. The next would be healing, where you can heal all of your hearts that you have. The third would be gaining experience, so each experience lets you get 2, plus maybe a little minor ability with it. And the fourth being buying a piece of gear to go out and adventure with your hero action. And that leads to the second type of action, which is the hero action. And so the hero action is what will play out across the main board of the game, and that will involve moving, possibly playing a quest, and then doing the action of that area. And those actions could be fighting monsters, they could be searching, they could be special actions designated to the individual area you're in. And so it's just this really neat game of choosing between the 2 types of actions that you will do. And once you have played your 6 rounds, you actually do a reset, see who produces the most, add up all your victory points, and that person is the winner.
So this game, obviously it's the third one in the trilogy. What are your thoughts on Now or Never?
Okay, so I first have to say I am a very big fanboy of Ryan Lockett and Above and Below, Now or Near and Far, Now or Never. I love all of these games.
So you say that. I think we can say that we're both pretty big fanboys of his games, right? We've tried a couple of the other ones, Rome, and we're hoping to get Sleeping Gods to the table soon. But anything that he comes out with, we gravitate towards that.
Yeah, and so I have to say, of this trilogy, this one knocks it out of the park for me. This is my favorite of the 3, the one I will easily choose to play.
Yeah, and so it's really funny because Devin and I, we've discussed this quite at length, and I really do enjoy this game, but this is not what I expected from this game, right? It's a great game. It feels really tight. You're collecting your resources, you're doing your quests, and you're searching. What I really wanted from this game was a more narrative-driven experience. This did provide some narrative, but not as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, so it's funny because we have talked about this quite a bit, and for me, that was not ever a factor of it. I just wanted a good game. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the expectation I had was knocked out of the park. This is an excellent Euro game. Mm-hmm. You It's all about building up your little resource engine, collecting resources, efficiently spending them to then build more, and it works so incredibly well. The narrative side of things, it's a neat flavor. It's really cool that it's splashed in. But I found myself personally, 5 minutes after the passage was read, I forgot all about it, right? It was not a crucial matter of the game at all.
So, I went into this game with expectations of playing above and below the campaign game, or near and far plus some, right? I went into it really thinking that this is the campaign game. We're going to be able to build up our characters. It's going to go on from this story to this story. I'm going to be able to have everything that I've built up with my character onto the next one. And unfortunately, it didn't do that. Really, what happened was you would finish one game and you would restart from exactly where you were before. And I was really hoping for adding more stuff, or being able to keep one of my specialists, or maybe this time I produce more of the bottled demons immediately, right? Like, I was really hoping on that build. This was kind of, at least in my mind, this was kind of marketed more as a campaign game, and I didn't really get that campaign-y feeling from it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's interesting that it is a campaign, because yes, you are really just playing 6 games in a row with variable setup. Now,
yes,
the passages in the book do go with that scenario story.
Yes, they do.
And yes, there is this overarching story, but it really doesn't, I hate to use the word matter, really too much to the game.
Mm-hmm.
You could do an entire playthrough where you might search and do the story 1, maybe 2 times
Which
total.
I think you did.
And that there has been times
Yes.
where I played it and I did that. And if you go the route of, I just really want to dive into this story and I want to do all the searching I can, well, really, you don't play the game efficiently.
Yes.
You're just trying to get story, but you're not going to score a lot of points. You're not going to have this really good or best game.
So, funny enough, I actually got to... We played a game together, just not the campaign. But I got to do the whole campaign with my wife, and Devin got to do the whole campaign with his wife. So we've gotten combined at least 13, 14 playthroughs of this game. And looking at our scores comparatively, I think Devin and Lacey doubled our total score. But you have to think about it as Kirsten and I, we went into it wanting this narrative experience, and we searched a lot more than what we probably should have. We didn't fight as many monsters as what we probably should have, but we really just were going towards that narrative section of the game. And, it was okay. We wanted a little bit more. There was some stories that we found that were the same for both of us, right? That it didn't matter if I had gone here or if I had gone here. It's not a customized story to my character, which is kind of unfortunate because every character has their own section in the book. Now, I know that would add a lot more writing, right, on their part, but, I say that, but Kirsten and I's scores were still very close to each other because we went into it with the same kind of mindset of the game. If I would have played y'all's campaign, I would have been destroyed.
Right, and so talking real quick about that, and that even though everybody has a section of the book, when I searched D, I could have the exact same story as when Paul searched D. And that was one, I guess I would say, nitpick or gripe that I didn't really care for. It's that how it worked, there was letters A through N, and whichever location you're at, that was where you searched. Well, really, of those, only 1 or 2 of the search spots might have actually involved your character. And if any other person searched there, it was just kind of a generic story.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if the first time you searched, you got a story dedicated to you, or the second time you search, or something like that. Because truthfully, of the campaign 6 games that I did, I had one story that was dedicated to my character, and Lacey was the same way. She had one to hers, and the rest were all just, I don't want to say cookie cutter, because they're well-written stories, but they were all just basic stories about that scenario. And so it made it where I did not care about going after the quest, because I didn't really care about my story, because Lacey could have searched the one that was my story, and so I wasn't going to get it.
Yeah. But I mean, all that being said, this game, it really does a great job of tying all these mechanisms together, right? Like, it's very tight on the resource management. You have to make sure that you're planning ahead multiple steps. On the little village place right over there, when you're collecting your villagers that you can only get from fighting the monsters, like, it does so much stuff in this game, and it does all of it really well.
Yes, so again, we talked about the story side of it, which is really the kind of side I did not care much about. The gameplay side of things, I love this game. This game is going to be high up there on games for me. Lacey and I have talked that we will continue to play this game, and kind of a neat thing is, because the stories are just kind of whatever, you can really just pick, like, we're going to play chapter 4 on the underside today, and you do that variable setup. There's really no reason to not still play one of the stories, because you get a unique setup. You get to play maybe a different character on that one, and then you don't have to continue the story.
And you would do that because on the non-campaign version of this game, there actually is no narrative side to it. You just get a little token, and if you search that area, you just flip the token over and you get whatever resource is shown on there. So if you want a little bit more of that flavor, then you can do what you said. Just, we'll set up this scenario and just play this scenario.
Well, and truthfully, the rewards are a bit better. You have the scale of how you search. It's just, I think there's more to, the game is really made in that story mode, and the arcade mode is really, in my opinion, it's the warm-up game. First time you play in that arcade mode, you try it out, you're really not going to take much damage from those abilities, and
you definitely need to start on the arcade mode. This game has so many moving parts, right? You get 3 hero actions per turn, but you have to be able to maximize those actions to be able to get the best from what you have, right? You, like we said, right? 3 turns plus your little special ones, but the round isn't over until you pass. So there's always something for you to do.
Yeah, and just, man, I love the having to balance what resources you need, the market scale of knowing, okay, I'm producing X amount of bottled demons. I need to get something that produces hammers so that I can trade those bottled demons efficiently, or the crystals, or whatever it was. There was always that, how do I maximize my market, right? So this is what I'm about to produce. I need X to be able to get the most points to then continue building my engine. And it works so well. From the very first turn, where really you only can move 3 times and build once, maybe twice. You do very little things, to the end of the game in Season 6, where we're building 4 times, we're moving 3 times, and it becomes this really, really tight, efficient engine, and it's really cool. And I touched on it in the overview, but the final round production is one of the best things I've ever experienced in a game.
I do agree with that 100%.
How it works, you completely reset all of your resources to 0. You then do a final production, and you sell for the maximum amount you can, and that is your baseline point starting out. And honestly, I think in most of our games, I'd have to look at the score, but I think it was roughly about a third to half of our points came from that. So it's really cool that you spent this entire game building an engine, and now you get to let it run. That's your baseline points. Now add in all the other little onesie-twosie points, and there's your score.
Now, caveat on that market, though, you have to make sure that you are trading them the most efficiently, because you could trade. You have to really look out to see what can go for the most money, because you could very easily sell 3 of the shells, right, for the lowest amount, when instead you could have done something a little bit higher and gotten some more coins. So I will say that part of the game, it can take a long time if you are really trying to maximize your points. We did end up finding an app that somebody made that gave you the best way for you to produce, and that actually really did kind of speed up that area.
It really did, and honestly, I almost feel like that app, having played without it and then playing with it, I feel like it's a necessary thing.
I agree.
I'm so thankful that somebody made it, because yes, that part, and I wouldn't even say it was an AP prone thing. It was, I need to trade in these resources for silver, and
I can legit lose 10 points by just trading one wrong thing.
Yeah, by trading it wrong. Yeah. And so it wasn't even, and they're free action, so it wasn't even like a race, or it's just, it's a part of the game you have to do. And so once we found that somebody created a great algorithm plugging it all in, that it just spit it out for us, trade these ball demons, these crystals, these hammers, it really did cut a lot of playtime off.
And that was something else I kind of wanted to hit on was the game time, right? Be ready to sit down for a long time with this game. The first time Kirsten and I played it, it took us 3.5, almost 4 hours to get through it. And of course, that's the first time playing it, right? Where we're trying to figure out, what does this do and what does this do? I think it took you guys longer than that.
Yeah, so I would say, now there's a caveat there, but most of our games were 3.5 to 4.5 hours. Two things. One, we do have a newborn, so there was a lot of interruptions. There was a lot of a high chair here as we're trying to entertain her and play, or it's time to take a quick pause and bathe her. So there was those little things. But I will say, even the games where it was after she went to bed and we kind of played straight through, we can be on the slower side of playing. And the games may have lasted, 3 to 3.5 hours. They never felt long to either of us.
Yes, I agree with that. And
we were active and enjoying it the whole time. We were engaged the whole time. There was honestly once where we played a 4-hour session. We fed Luna, bathed her, put her to bed, and then immediately played another 4-hour session. Like, it kept us engaged the entire time, even though they were really long sessions. And for me, I personally enjoy longer games. It's not a bother for me to play a game that long. But that was at 2 players.
Yes.
If you play this with more players, you only add time. No part of this is simultaneous, aside from the production phase, which is mere minutes as it is. You are adding an hour 15 per player, depending on their speed.
That's what I was going to say. Kirsten and I are much faster players than y'all. Me especially. Kirsten actually, takes her time a little bit more than I do. But I think our fastest game was 2 hours, maybe. I want to say maybe like 2.5. And, that's after putting the daughter to sleep, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like what you guys, but, that's on the longer side of games that we like to play. If we're doing the campaign mode, this game is a beast to set up as well, right? There's tons of stuff inside this box. Tons of stuff. And when I first unwrapped it, the first thing I did was I made individual bags for everybody. And that really does kind of speed that part up a little bit. So, with all that being said, just be prepared to spend some time on
Yeah, for sure. Table hog, indeed. I have a 4x4 table, and I would say it took up a majority of the table. We still had some room, of course, at the top, and that's where we could store the resources and whatnot. But overall, for the two of us, it took up a majority of the table. Now, for me, that's awesome. Let's take up the whole gaming table. I really did enjoy that.
And for me, though, it took up our dining table, and I didn't want to take it down every night because we were going to be playing it the next night. So, it's out in the open with kids. They're going to be moving stuff. So, if you you have a dedicated place for it, yeah, that's great and all. But if you don't, that's just going to add more onto your time there.
Yeah. So getting to how this compares to the other two, I'll say, I think this one it's really very similar to Above and Below. But in my mind, it does it better and does more. Right, so it's able to accomplish more. It does turn into a longer game, but everything Above and Below because Above and Below was a pretty tight Euro game.
Yes,
that had story elements. This is that exact same thing. So I think if you're a fan of Above and Below, for sure, you will definitely enjoy this.
So that's real funny you say that, because I would say Above and Below is my favorite of the trilogy. I really do like the resource management in that one. This one does it 10 times more. But I love Above and Below, and maybe it's just nostalgia, right? Maybe because that was one of the first games I played with narrative. But I just think the narrative in Above and Below is just superior to this one.
Oh, man.
Now, on top of that, though, I think Near and Far is the best campaign one, and the best story-driven one by that. But I don't know. For me, I'm going to go with Above and Below.
So that's an interesting thing, because I actually think the narrative is dead same as Above and Below in this, in that the truth is, if you're trying to maximize your score and trying to do the best in Above and Below, there's really a switch of, I'm no longer going to explore, I'm no longer going to read the book, and I'm just going to continue to build out my village. And so I actually think it's so similar, and the narrative is exactly the same in that. It's you read passages early, you get those little boosts of resources and whatnot, and then you switch over to full gameplay mode.
So, and again, it could be my expectations of the game, right? Like, I went into this thinking that there was going to be 6 chapters of a complete build-up. In Above and Below, I like it because it's a one game, this is the story, next time you're going to get a completely random one. That's what I expect from that game. That's not what I expected from this. And now, going back on it, and that's not a knock against the game at all. That's just my expectations of it were not fulfilled.
Right.
That's all it is. That's good.
Well, I honestly think that's about it. You kind of get 2 different viewpoints. I completely love the game, think it's great. Paul doesn't dislike the game. His favorite.
I don't dislike the game at all. It is a great game, and if you want a tight game with great mechanics, with a little bit of storytelling sprinkled in here and there, this is definitely the game for you. It's a great game, just not what I had wanted. But other than that, I mean, we definitely recommend it. It's, like Devin mentioned, it's going to be in his top...
I don't know, 10, 20?
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive, right? For a game that's this new, that, it has to be impressive for it to jump up that quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So that is kind of all we've got. We really do want to thank Red Raven Games for giving us this review copy, and I highly recommend checking it out. It was a blast to play, and let us know in the comments what you think about the game. Also, please like, subscribe. All of those things really do help our channel, and we really do appreciate it. That's all we've got. We'll catch you on the next one. One of 2. Anyway, I'll redo that. That was terrible. Start with
So enthusiastic too.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, ready?